It's been a good month of not actively working on my new collection, so it's about time I get back into it. Since I had some sublimation prints left over from my degree collection, which I had been planning on getting transferred onto fabric for a while, I cut them to size and took to the printing place. By the way, what I learned last year is that Tallinn does not really have large heat presses available to the public like they do in Moscow, so I had to compensate and cut my prints out for the press that I had access to. In that month of neglect, I let my sewing corner get very messy, and since I can't work in a crazy mess, I started by cleaning my workstation. So a fun little update, which is not so fun to be honest. Besides the fact that I've got corona, which is not that big of a deal because I'm feeling pretty good, I've been vaccinated twice, yet somehow I still got it. Omicron, hello, just the first couple of days were bad. I've also somehow missed the day when the contest that I'm going to be applying for, I posted the application deadline on their website, even though I've been religiously checking their website multiple times throughout the month and especially in December as well. Somehow I missed it, even though they posted it on the 16th of December. It's February and I just noticed it. This means I'm going to have to work a lot faster, a lot quicker to make clear-cut decisions and not chew my food too much and just swallow it right away, which is good to be honest. Like I'm used to that kind of pace, and since starting to work at a startup and not doing my fashion design process every single minute of my life, it has limited my amount of time to work, but this is also great. For me, at least personally, I knew when I started that job that this was going to help me rather than hurt me, just because I like to work under time pressure. I like time constraints and deadlines, and this is for sure a time constraint and a deadline altogether. So now I don't have time to just chill and just do some random side projects like I have been yesterday for absolutely no fucking reason. I've started making a patchwork skirt out of all the little sample pieces, fabric pieces that I had. Like, yeah, cool, fun, but how about you focus on a collection that actually has a deadline versus the skirt that you're probably not gonna have to finish ever, to be honest. Like, it's your project, you don't have to do it right away. So I'm gonna finish the skirt whenever I'm done with the application deadline, because I don't have to do the entire collection sewed physically. But the only issue with that is I usually work in a very different way. It's not like I sketch and then I physically make the thing. I usually sketch and design and make samples and play in a mannequin, play with fabrics, knit a sweater, you know? Like I would not just design this, you know? I had to play around with this to create this cording. Like I never thought of it in my head first. So I'm definitely the type of designer who has to play with things and play with my materials and experiment physically instead of drawing. So this is a bit of a challenge, but granted, I do have a lot of ideas which I have been sitting on for a while just because I had the time to. Now I don't have the time to, so we're gonna have to work. Now on to the depressing part, checking out the little amount that we actually have done so far. This is not bad, again. We don't have to create the physical collection, but because that's how I work, I usually kind of have to create a physical collection before I decide what the final pieces are. So, as you can see, these three sections, neither of them are fully finished looks, and they look very disjointed, which is usually what happens when my collection is in process, but at the end, they're all connected together, and all the pieces look kind of uniform when they are in a long collection line. There's also one piece that's missing, which is actually the only fully finished look that I'm going to be submitting as part of this submission, because we have to have a fully finished look as a photograph. So this is going to be the fully finished look that I've recently given to Style Photo Shoot in Moscow. I already know that I'm going to be reusing the same fabric that we see here and a similar fabric that we see for a look with kind of a skirt trouser moment with that fabric. We have enough of that, so it's going to be pulling those together but creating a very different silhouette because it's going to be long up until the ground, which is good. With this, I have some amount of that merino wool, but I'm going to be definitely repurchasing a little bit because I want to create leg warmers instead of stocking. It's going to be playing on the idea that in airport, when you're passing by, you have to take off your shoes, so you're basically walking barefoot just with socks. So I definitely wanted to create stockings, but I wanted to be a bit more adjustable. If the person I really want to put this look on doesn't have a size 38, for example, if that's what I need, then they're not going to be able to put them on, and I don't want to stretch them out in case their foot is larger. So I'm probably going to be making leg warmers. This is a female naked body that is playing on the idea of a full body scan in airport. So that's going to be talking about the same section, although the stockings or the leg warmers are not going to be paired up with this look. They're going to go to a different separate look, which I haven't decided on, but a separate look nonetheless. This goes around the rib cage, this section goes around the breast, and I'm still working on, so it's probably going to be something that I'm going to start working on right this moment because I've been putting it off for so long and it's just unacceptable. This is gorgeous thing. The great part about it is that this fabric is the same fabric that the top and pieces of a skirt that my actual fully finished look is made out of, so this is going to be the unifying factor. And also the organic shape of this paperclip I'm using because like connecting documents together and stuff, they are very similar to the organic shapes that we see on the bodies here. I have a couple of pieces of those paperclips that I've already created an idea in my mind at least, and also on the mood board. This is going to be the section that goes around the breast as well, and it's going to be part of a dress. What we also have is a giant roll of fabric. I think it's 3 meters by 150 or even larger, so I'm definitely going to be playing around with this. Haven't decided yet, but this is also the same fabric that skirt of the only look is made out of. I haven't done the printing over top of it yet, and I tested it out multiple times. Hated it at first, but now I fucking love it. This is such a weird play on textures, and especially I'm enjoying how much this initially black dye is kind of phasing out against this gray and turning into brownish. I'm enjoying it. It's playing on the idea of time and time passing as well, which I've been talking about in my collection. So it's gorgeous. A happy accident, which I'm very, very happy about, to be honest. I'm definitely going to be doing the printing, likely on this fabric, but also initially I've been planning on doing it on this fabric, which I have already tested out in here. And also in the 3D simulation that I did a few months ago. So it's a bit crazy right now, it's a bit disjointed as you can tell, but I do have a couple of ideas, so let's get on to the sketching and see if anything looks uniform. Okay, it's been like 2 seconds in the last clip, but I opened the page completely forgetting that I've ever made this piece, but oh my god, do they look perfect together. Oh my god, I'm so happy because this section is a crumpled piece of fabric, which I would likely repeat in a similar manner like here as well. Also gonna have a little metal section in the middle because I have a little bit of that leftover wire. If you can see, it's right there. So I'm gonna be playing around with that and creating the little section in the middle between the boobs as well. So what you see hanging pieces, there would probably be a bit more than just one. Recently I made a couple of months ago, I made some experiments with ceramic. I played around with photographing all of my metal pieces that you saw in here, and I've been rearranging them differently, playing around with how they look, creating very connected shapes and checking out just random organic shapes that happen from a bent paper clip to build further on the process and create a bit more layered and a difficult structure and a shape. And after that I molded them from ceramics, and then I had them burned in a kiln, and also I asked my mom to cover them in glaze because I wasn't able to go to ceramics. Soon they should be done and I would be able to add them on here, and I would absolutely love to recreate this section. Oh my god, I'm in love. I'm so happy. I was drawing my sketches in Illustrator. I also made a textile board, just adding fabric pieces of all the textures definitely that I want to be using. I also added a bent out of shape paperclip because basically I'm using those, and I also wanted to showcase the fact that I'm using metal. And then I had a couple of sketches done. I definitely erased some of those that I didn't really like and that I wasn't keen on using. This one felt very basic. It doesn't really fit here at all. All the things that I wanted to keep I kept, all the things I wanted to change I changed. So we come to this illustration. You see that I still kept some of the pieces but made some alterations. So this skirt trouser thing doesn't really look the same. It looks a little bit different. I'm going to be playing in a mannequin with it. Then I added the sweater vest that I had but didn't have any illustrations of. I also added the stockings that we were talking about. Then the top section that I absolutely adore. And then the trousers that I played around on a couple of pages further. So you can see that lower portion though is kind of interesting. Might be a bit too basic, but we might use some of that basics. I definitely lack some pieces that are very eye-catching, so we're going to be moving on to those further on. So you can see that here we have mostly just outlines. Those I forgot to save in Illustrator, so I only have them with color. But then I made a colorful version of some options of how this might look in the future. Once I made my textile board, I decided to try out my range plan in color as well. Now I'm going to cut it out and have it next to my fabric pieces. So some ideas will come out of that as well. I'm also thinking that I might, for styling purposes, have one of my tops from the previous collection that was made out of this transparent mesh be layered underneath of that section, but definitely keep the belly open so that like up until the boob section it would be open, and then we would have long sleeves here and a bit of a turtleneck here to play around with proportions a little, because now all the tops are basically the same cut except for this one and it kind of feels out of place. I'm going to be playing with the similar grey fabric of that large tube of fabric, which is going to be checking out those droopy shoulder silhouettes as well later on. However, now it kind of feels a little bit out of place and too similar to repetitive, so like layering would be kind of interesting. Also as a preface for the knitted sweater, because those kind of hand patterns and all that is going to be reminiscent of that sweater, so likely it's going to come in here as well. So because I'm quarantining, I wasn't able to pick up my order, but luckily my dad was able to drive by and pick up all the prints that were supposed to be transferred to fabric. Now, if you've ever dealt with sublimation printing or heat transfer press, whatever, you will understand what the issue is right away, but for those who haven't, this piece of paper has a very heat sensitive ink on it, which transforms into gas, which seeps into the fabric that it's being transferred onto. The issue is that this gas state was never achieved because the ink is still on paper. Usually when you use it under heat press, the ink goes away and it becomes basically the same color as the paper piece was originally, which is this very cold white. You can tell that most of that ink is still here. Nothing really changed apart from it fading just a little bit, a half a tone lighter maybe. So just imagine how awful the fabric turned out. Well, one picture is worth 1,000 words, right? Wow, what a transfer. Almost no color at all. Incredible. Let me just do a quick side by side. This was the piece of fabric left over from the transfer that I got done last summer, I think, for the previous previous collection. And just check it out. This section, yes, it's very light because it's supposed to be light. And this purple is basically the same purple that we're supposed to see in here. Oh my god, what a striking difference. I'm sorry, what? I understand that I maybe gave them a bit of wrong directions because they asked me how long do you usually keep it on the heat press or how high the temperature is. I said it's like 180 degrees Celsius. Maybe I was wrong on that. Maybe it's like 200 and stuff. But I remember in uni we just tested those out, and I specifically gave them multiple tiny pieces of fabric and print of this size more or less so that they could test it out. And I was like, but you can test it out, you see what works best. Like, it's basically supposed to transfer the color, so it should be very beautiful and dark. Why? Why did it turn out this bad? That's okay, just a lesson to try and do that myself, which is a bit of a challenge because even just trying to find a place that's gonna transfer my already printed out pieces onto my piece of fabric, just simply using their heat press was already a challenge, much less let a stranger walk in and do whatever they want. And I'm not even trying to repeat my uni experiments from that leather piece on the bottom when I was using metal paper clips over top of leather on the heat press trying to create an emboss effect. Understandably, they would not want me to do that because I would potentially be damaging their equipment, and our uni only allowed that because we were experimenting. And they were ready for crazy student experiment damages, which was fine, and nothing really happened by the end of it. My paperclip experiments were the least of their worst, to be honest, because a lot of people were playing around with paint and different substances which could actually damage the equipment instead of my paperclip. So I understand that they wouldn't want me to do that, but just a freaking piece of paper, come on. I get their concern, so I'm going to be looking for a place that's going to allow this stranger to walk in and do whatever they want, under their supervision, of course. The fun part is going to be trying to place the print the same way that it has somewhat transferred onto this area. We'll see. I might not have to line them up perfectly, and if they shift, it's going to add to the effect, because the idea of my collection, at least for this specific section and for this print itself, comes from my graduate collection. And the way I developed it was I took photos of one model with her consent, of course. I kind of distorted them a little bit, distorted the body shape as well so that it wouldn't resemble her, she would feel a bit more comfortable with it, and played around with color, played around with texture of that print in itself, layered a lot of pieces of the body sections as well to have it kind of rough around the edges, you know, and the print itself would be a bit more layered, heavy and structured and difficult for vision. And the print itself is resembling a full body scan in airport. When you pass by the metal detector check, you kind of do this, the robot thing goes around you and does the metal scan. And the point is that it's very revealing, very intrusive. Your entire body is on show, you're basically naked on the monitor, which is very intrusive. And in this collection as well, this idea is trickling down specifically to that very poignant moment. And I wanted to play around with this a bit further, which turns out that is definitely happening, because when I'm going to be transferring my print over top of the same piece of fabric, they're for sure going to shift, no matter how much I try to line them up perfectly, which is not even bad, because it's just going to add to the effect of that scanner, kind of add the dynamic movement to that, because the scanner is moving and your shots are kind of layering over top of each other to be the 3D version of that scan, right? So it's interesting. We'll see how that works out. Maybe if I like the shifting effect, I'm going to shift them even further to add another layer to this print, because in my graduate collection, it did feel a little bit too straight on and too forward, and that's not usually my approach. I like a lot of layering, a lot of processes over top of each other, so I am actually considering even doing this on purpose. So we'll see how that goes whenever I end up getting to that sketchy place that allows me to do the printing. So this is a story of how I got my shit together, and hopefully this is only going to be productive from this point on. Thank you for watching. See you next week. Bye!